for the critics, my words are like physics, a force that they can't stop. They just don't get it, I think they forget I'm not done till I'm on top. I know I was born for this. I know I was born for this. I believe we can write our story.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there? It's Gary. I'm not alone today, so I'm going to bring on my buddy of mine, Jeremy, and we are going to be moving forward in this conversation. We're going to be moving forward into a podcast, and so I'm going to bring on Jeremy, and here we go. Jeremy, hi. So Jeremy, I want to introduce you to the world. You already know this, but for everyone listening to the sound of my voice, everybody watching us online at some point in the distant future, or maybe even right now, we're going to be titling this podcast Words from the Wise. And the idea behind that is just, talking about concepts or talking about things that we think are valuable to people that might be in the space of people, leadership, working with one another, trying to figure out a way in this world to hopefully make it a better place, right? Because in my mind, that's what leaders really do. Leaders work with people to meet them where they're at, to help them accomplish a goal. And so with that, Jeremy is rounded up to help me out with this. And so brother, I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Awesome. So Jeremy, before we really go any further, let's go ahead and start off with, can you give us, or the people out there in the world, some background on who you are?
So I retired from the Navy after 24 years of active duty service as a chief petty officer in the Navy. And I immediately went into working in medical business. And that's what I do now. I run a center that has about 12 people in it. And we just do small unit leadership kind of stuff. And I get a little bit of outreach that way through my work, and then being able to work with some of the stuff through our hospital.
Right. Hey, so like Jeremy said, he's retired Navy chief. We live in the same community. We met one another through our different areas of expertise, our different work. And man, when I first met him, I was like, oh my God, that there's a brother, there's a chief. And as things have progressed throughout this journey for me, he was one of the first people I called to help out, jump in on this journey of leadership and working with people. And so I really appreciate you being here, brother, and offering your 2 cents, your expertise. It's going to be a lot of fun, right?
I hope so. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. So when I created this event, this podcast, or today's topic in particular, it was going to be, it is focused on conflict, right? And the title, I think, was like Mastering Conflict. How do you master conflict? Which, I mean, can you ever master conflict, do you think?
No, you can definitely master yourself and how you deal with that conflict, but there's always going to be somebody else's feelings that are involved. And usually there's 2 ways of looking at the same problem. So it's just how I look.
I always tell people there's 3 sides to every story, right?
Yeah.
There's your side, there's their side, then there's the truth somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And people they don't always want to hear that, right? They typically want to hear it, I'm right or I'm wrong, or give me a black or white answer, give me a cut and dry answer, right?
Right.
Okay, so I love that where you said you can master what I tell the students, you can't always control what someone's going to do to you, but you can control how you respond. Right. Good. All right. So here we go. I'm gonna approach this from a reverse perspective. And what are the opportunities in conflict? Right. What do you think? Like, because I love it. Right. As a chief petty officer, ask anyone who knew me in the mess, I was all about a conflict. Like I had no problem from the time I was a baby chief all the way through the end of my tenure in the United States Navy. If I had a problem, if I had a concern, if I had an issue, once we got in the mess, I was airing it out. I was bringing it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, the great thing about conflict is it teaches you what other people are impassioned on and what really matters to them. And I find value in learning what other people feel are important or what other people pick up on. So if I have times where I've intentionally, add a little bit of conflict just to see how people react to that kind of situation. Because that personal tendency is always overwhelming. Like I can feel it, like, the Incredible Hulk kind of boiling up in me, where somebody attacks my character and I want to fire back. But
Right.
I've learned to kind of master my emotion and take a step back and not retaliate immediately, because it's not always the best thing.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to come back to that in the future about is it personal or not,
Yeah.
because that for me is an important distinction,
Mhm.
right? Like I have no problem having conflict. I have no problem, but it's never personal though, right? As a
Right.
matter of fact, what I have learned, if it's personal, the best thing to do is to be quiet, right? Because you're trying to hurt somebody at that point, and that's just never going to be what we're trying to do, right? And if
Right.
somebody's misunderstanding and they think they're being attacked in that manner, then I would like to believe that, and we're going to talk about this today, they've got to have the courage to speak up and say that, right? Because I think that will rebalance out the whole conversation. Because again, people don't mean people that are actually trying to be successful in their team, they should care, right? Whether it's sports, whether it's in a tense situation where everyone's trying to survive, whether it's in a space where you're just trying to win in the moment. I love when people bring up concerns, because like you said, it means they care,
Yeah.
right? I remember we were getting ready for a shipboard inspection one time, and the CO come down to the Chiefs mess, and all the Chiefs were in there, and the stress was there, and the captain said, "Look, take it personal. Like, take this personal. We're gonna go out there today. We've worked for it. We've trained for it. There's no takebacks today, but don't detach yourself from today. Take it freaking personal. And if we don't do our best, we'll grow." I love that, because he wasn't telling us it was the end of everything, but he
Sure.
was saying it was okay to take it personal, and that's a big deal. Do you think that coming out of conflict, there can become the innovation, creativity can be sparked?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's, you know, for the longest time, we always promoted, diversity within our ranks and that kind of stuff. And diversity was great. Not, I mean, it wasn't even a mixing of, people from different, backgrounds or things, just different ideas.
Yeah,
And that kind of soup that we made from everybody's personality and everybody's ideas was really the best way to solve a problem. So during conflict, you have people that are impassioned about a certain way, but with that, they typically will bring ideas. Well, why didn't you do this? Or why wasn't this done? Or why did so and so act this way instead of that way? And then you find out, okay, well, that is a legitimate argument to it. And, with that comes, that necessity to attack a problem.
yeah. I agree. And the thing is, everyone has these different perspectives, but we all have to be optimistic towards achieving the goal, right? And
Right.
so if you bring a different perspective than mine, I believe there's no age requirement to wisdom, right?
No.
I just don't believe it. I've seen some very, very, very sage 18-year-olds, right?
Yep.
They may not be, 40 something years old, but man, they've been through some stuff in their life, and their perspective changed whole ways I would do things, right? And what I would tell them is what I love about our past lives, right? What I loved about the Navy, what I love about even what I do now with these kids is I tell them rank has no age, right? It's not about how old you are. It's about what you freaking know, man. And
Right.
if you're making sense, a qualified person is going to recognize that, and they're going to shut up and let you keep talking, because you're probably onto something. And I've seen that different perspective change everything,
Yeah.
because they had no attachment.
Mhm.
They were just like, why are we doing this? And I tell that to my students all the time. Like, I changed whole ways of doing business because a new person asked a dumb question, and I thought, why are we doing this?
Well, it's always that. I'm sure you've been somewhere where they're like, you ask, why did you do this? And the answer was, well, that's always how we've done this. And when you have that questioning, of you have the conflict and you're like, well, why did we do this? And now you're learning that just because we always did it that way doesn't mean we can't be more efficient and more effective by doing it this way.
Hey man, you ever heard people say, "Oh, back in my day, right? Back in my generation." So when I went through CMC school, it was very unique because I was a DC Master Chief, and I was the youngest DC Master Chief in the Navy at the time, right? Well, in my CMC class was the oldest DC Master Chief in the Navy at the time. So both of us were going CMC at the same time. And here we both were. I mean, same background, damn near same DNA. Like, let's be honest, right? Like, we were both super similar, but our perspectives were just completely opposite of things because of the generational gaps. Because he had a good 10 years in the Navy over me, right? And then I had learned something when I went through the Senior Enlisted Academy. When we were up there, or when I was with my family, we were in Philadelphia one time, and we went to Valley Forge. Okay. Right. I don't know. So what do you know about? Do you know a lot about Valley Forge?
Yeah, I know some. I never visited there or anything personally.
So Valley Forge is essentially the place where Washington took the Continental Army after they were getting their butts kicked by the military that was the Redcoats, right? They were just better soldiers. They were better professionals. They were all these things. And so Washington takes his civilian military force to Valley Forge, and he brings in mercenaries, right? I mean, that's really what it is. He brings in mercs. He brings in dudes from like Russia, the Prussians, right? The Germans, whoever you want to call them. And their job is to train the Americans, right? To become fighters. And when you go to Valley Forge, right? And I told this story at the Senior Enlisted Academy. That's why I bring this up, because it's about change. There's in Valley Forge, there's a placard on the wall. And there's this general, and he says, "The Americans, without a doubt, are the worst soldiers I've ever seen in my life. They want to know why they have to do it, how come they have to do it, where they want to know all these things, right?
Right.
And that's exhausting. This is, and I'm kind of just like summarizing it, right, for the conversation. But that's what it says. But he says, but if you could convince them that their cause is just and that what they need to do is important, there's no one that's going to stop them."
Yeah. And
I remember I'm with my family. We're at Valley Forge, and I'm going through the SEA, the distance learning portion of the course, right? And I read this, and I'm thinking, bro, this is a dude saying this about us before we're even us, right? So this country was built on the backs of people saying, "Why do we got to do that?" Like, that doesn't, innovators, right? Yeah. And you could, I mean, and when I brought that up in the classroom, I said, look, so whenever I hear people say, well, that's how it's always been done, I immediately want to change something, right? Like, as soon as you say that, I almost right there want to change everything about what we're doing. It's a trigger.
No, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trigger. Okay, so so we're talking about innovation, we're talking about creativity, it's going to be growth. Can people become better teammates going through conflict?
Yes, definitely.
Why?
Well, I'll give you an instance. So I went through CASVAC training back in 2004, and it's kind of like a mini air crew school, and they brought 50 of us together from every Marine Corps unit scattered across, even from Okinawa, bringing them in. And in particular, there was, I think at the time there were 3 or maybe 4 females. We ended up with only 2 graduating, and one of them I just couldn't stand. I mean, I'm going to tell you,
okay,
like, the sound of her voice just bothered me. It was just one of those people. And then we deployed together, and a few times we were partners on the back of the helicopter. And, our job was to go out and get people that were injured and bring them in and get them to a hospital. And I still didn't like her. And then I got moved into a center where we were in charge of that operation of pushing helicopters where they needed to go to get the people that were injured from all the conflicts in Iraq. And we were stuck there for a month together, just like the 2 of us, and the only ones that knew each other, and then everybody, that was there to support us and stuff. And through all that conflict, we became really good friends, really like lifelong friends because we still talk now. But our team, even going through that, we pulled together.
Right.
Just like you would see on kind of any movie or whatever, when you have that initial conflict, and that's why boot camp works so well, because you have that initial conflict, and then everybody decides it's easier to work together to create, a winning team than it would be to fight each other and get pulled apart. And that's kind of how it always is. That's always been my experience with everywhere I've been. You're not really good until you suffered with each other. And then you've got like this super synergy that, it brings you in like a family, you really start hitting all cylinders, and it's an amazing thing to be part of a team like that.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were talking, I was like, I see your true colors shining through, because, hey, when people are exhausted, right, and they don't have the energy to keep up the facade, then you see what they're really made of, right? And
Definitely.
I will tell you, there's just something about that moment. And I have leveraged that throughout my career as a team builder, right? Whether it was what I learned in basic training, whether it was coming through the ranks as a DC-man or going through initiation, or even to this day, working with the kids, right? Like I'll get them out there and I'll PT them. They'll get out there and get to work, and I'll see them bind. They'll come together to get through that hard workout, and they will unify. And that's why it's such a good team builder. Anything athletic is almost always a good team builder, because when you sweat with people, when you're out there drinking out of the same hose, you're a team, bro.
Yeah.
You're a team, right? And that's huge. And I think that the other thing is, I think when I can really say I believe you feel the certain way, right? Because maybe you're having a hard time controlling it. I like that, because now I know you're being authentic, and that matters to me, man. Like, don't tell me what I want to hear, bro. Don't tell me that. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But but once I see you escalate to a point of like getting your point across, then I know I can trust you, because I know you're not afraid to do it.
Yeah. Now you're emotionally invested.
Exactly right. And I know that if you had a real problem, you'd bring it up, right? And so if you don't bring it up, it's not that big of a deal. And that's great too, right? It's not, you're not taking the bait. It's not worth the problem. And we're going to talk about that now, because so I've got 4 different kinds of conflict, right? That I think are probably the most common that come up. It's in between 2 people. There is in a group a problem, right? So you got in between 2 people, you got in a group, you got maybe 2 groups, right? Or you've got 2 organizations that are having conflict. If you had to pick your poison, right? If you had to say, okay, I'm going to give you a leadership lesson, or I'm going to give you something to think about that you wanted to talk about, which one would you rather not have to deal with?
I guess because I've had to deal with it so much, I'd rather not have to deal with the 2 companies kind of thing. I would rather deal with the individual, the 2 individuals or the 2 small groups that are kind of going at each other.
Okay. Why?
Well, for one, you got way less red tape to jump through. And, when you're dealing with companies and stuff, you've got different programs that might conflict. And now you've got to kind of unwrap that. But with interpersonal dealings and interpersonal communication, you're right. You can see any team where you've got a group of people over here and a group of people over here, and they've kind of got their own emotional leader, and those 2 leaders are kind of at odds with each other. And that seems to be, that it's an easier way to deal with that conflict, because now once you've identified the 2 emotional leaders within those, now you can start working on ways to get those 2 to collaborate together, and you'll see those walls come down.
Okay, I get that. I agree with you when it comes to the bureaucracies of organizations, right?
Right.
I've been a part of large organizations most of my adult life, right? And all of us theoretically are working to the same end goal, right? So it didn't matter if you were an operational person, if you were a support team person, if you were you pick an engineer down, keeping the lights on, like you pick your poison, right? But the thing was, we all had to respect the end goal and the mission. And that was probably the biggest challenge for me when I became a CMC, right? It was because I no longer got to pick a team.
Yeah.
I couldn't just say, I'm an engineer. I don't care what you guys think. I had to be this mediator in between everybody and be like, hey, look, I don't care what you guys think you need. Supply is the next person up that needs all of our support. So no matter what you got to get done, the mess decks needs to be squared away because we can't fail this inspection.
Yeah.
Or it's health and comfort of the crew or whatever it is. And I think that for people that are on these large organizational groups, they have to always remember the bigger picture, right? Especially at the executive level, right? If you're an executive and you're getting wrapped around the axle on just your own little rice bowl or your own little silo. You ever hear that? The silos, right? Why are silos such a challenge in the world?
Because they tend to only look within their space. If you're in a silo, you don't see what's going on outside. Your purview is like 15 feet. You can see everything around you where, you're outside of that silo and you're kind of leading as, above that level. You see all the different silos and how they're working together, which is exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And you can't get trapped in that silo. You got to know what's going on somewhere else so you know how to work as a team.
And you know what I would hate is when I would recognize somebody was only focusing on their little area, and then I would hear them essentially make fun of another silo, right? Or another area of the organization.
Right.
That would just spin me right up because we're not doing that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sayings is we all win if we don't care who gets the credit, right? Like we're a team. That's one of my favorite parts about when I joined the Chiefs mess. I bought into this idea that we were a collective and that we were going to work together for the betterment of not just the command, but also our organization, our group, right? And through our cohesiveness, it was going to be aligned and it was going to make everybody above us and below us better for it, right? And so and part of why I jumped into the CMC program is because I wanted that and I got it, but it was bloody. I drug people there, right? I drug you there. Because we'd have to have those hard conversations about why are you going home at noon when these guys are working till 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
That's just not going to make for a good unit when they know you're not putting the work in.
Yeah.
Right. And people have to have those hard conversations. On the reverse, choose your rate, choose your fate, right? You pick your, you pick your job and that matters too. But I think that's in every organization. I'm in the school now. You could feel the math teachers have a challenge that the PE teachers maybe don't have.
Yeah.
Right. So ROTC instructors, I got the best job in the school. I'd be lying to you if I said otherwise. Right. You know who has a hard job? English teachers. Teaching these kids to read and write is freaking, as a dad, I struggle with my own kid, let alone 300 kids.
Yeah.
Right. And
definitely.
so you have to have empathy. You have to care about what they're going through. And we're going to talk about that. So, I want to come back real quick. For me, the one I don't want to deal with out of those 4 categories, if I had to choose one, so for me, the organizational one, no problem. Right. Because I've just done that so much. Right. So for me, the one I don't want to deal with, if I can help it, is the one-on-one interpersonal, because it's typically freaking personal, right? Yeah. There's typically something, and it's probably a miscommunication, or God help us, it could be even worse than that, right? And it almost always is so dramatic, and there's feelings and all this other stuff, right? And I got to come through the muckety muck.
Especially when it stems from your outside perspective, or your personal, whether it was a relationship issue or, personal lives coming into work and affecting things.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I see it every day with the team I'm with now. I saw it every day when I was in the service. I see it with any leader I speak to, right? If they could just not be distracted by 2 grown, theoretically, two emotionally mature people. I was going to say grown adults, right? But let's not go down that vortex. but two emotionally mature people that could recognize how to actually communicate, maybe it wouldn't be such a distraction, right? And then, but what happens is they get into this emotional moment, they have this freaking outburst, it sends ripples throughout the organization, and then it lands on your doorstep and they light it on fire and say, "Here you go, boss." You know, and I just, it's so disappointing, right? That's probably why I don't like it. I get disappointed, right? I don't like being disappointed in my people. And it's just like, brother, like, how did we get here? Right. I'll tell that to the cadets. Like, why are we having this problem? Like, this is why we don't date each other, right? Like, we don't do that. Because it just ends up being dramatic. Okay, so the process of conflict, right? There's this idea, there's a process. And the idea number one is there's the potential for the conflict, right? So you as a leader, we know there's always the potential for conflict because human beings have idiosyncrasies, right? They've got unique factors that can cause them to have a bad freaking day. And if they're having a bad day, they might something might dust up, right? They want to share the love, right? They're having a bad day, so they want to share their bad day with a friend, right? So that's the one. And then you've got, okay, now it's emerging, right? Now that the conflict has actually started and people can feel the energy. Oh, now it's escalating, right? It's in the workspace and people are now, getting pulled apart. People are getting separated. Oh, I walked in the mess one time. Here you go. This is a good one. We were off the coast of Australia. It was about 2017. Okay. I'm on the USS Ashland. We've got the 31st MEU embarked on board us. We probably carry about 800 U.S. Marines plus the whole complement. And it's us, it's the Green Bay, and I forget the big deck. I think it was, I forget the big deck, but there's a big deck with us too. And it's Saturday. On the ship on Saturday, it's a big deal. We have pizza, we have wings, right? And the Chiefs mess. We would all, like, the gunnies would serve the food for a little bit, then the Chiefs would serve the food for a little bit. We'd be in there playing cards and watching Game of Thrones or Sons of Anarchy. And I always made it a priority for that event to be happening because on the mess decks, it was fun too. And the wardrobe was fun too. Everybody was having some downtime, right? And I was making my way to the mess. I just got down there. We've been on deployment for about 5 months at this point in time. And this is what's going to end up being about a 8-month, 9-month deployment, right? But we're about 5 months into this deployment. And I get in the mess and the gunnies are serving and things are good, right? Life is great. I go into the Chiefs mess. I jump on an empty couch. I kick my feet up and they're watching Game of Thrones. And I'm just like, I'm locked in. Like, I'm not going nowhere for a little while. It's in the evening, dinner time. Out of nowhere, a mass sergeant comes running in. He's like, "Hey, an Osprey just went off the back of the USS Green Bay." And we're like, that doesn't even make sense. Right? Like, and when if you ever see the video, you can go find the video online. This Osprey comes in, touches, for some reason goes up, hooks the Green Bay and goes upside over, loaded out with Marines and sailors. Right? And gear. So the mass sergeant runs in. He's like, an Osprey just went off the Green Bay. And everyone's just looking at him like, what? Like, what? And so right then you hear the 1MC, man overboard, right? And I'm gone. I'm up to the bridge, right? I'm just hauling ass up to the bridge. We got the boats are getting in the water. When I get up to the bridge, we're coming up on one side. The big deck's coming up on the other side. The Green Bay is like in the middle of us, not moving, right? Because we were doing flight operations between the three ships. It was a Saturday. That's what we do, right? But this is the same summer of Fitzgerald, of McCain, of losing the COD. Like, it's been a bad summer for the Navy and the Marine Corps team, right? Just operationally having challenges. And as I get up to the bridge, we're coming up, and you could already see heads popping out of the water, right? You can already see heads. And unfortunately, we lost 3 Marines this day. We just put that out there, right? We had 3 United States Marines did not make it home this day. And so I get up there and we're coming up, and it's unbelievable, right? It's unbelievable. Like we don't know. Boats are in the water. We're pulling people out of the water, but it's going to be, you know how, I don't know if you've ever felt this, but whenever there's a man overboard, we will not stop, right? It will not stop until every person is accounted for or higher headquarters comes down and says, okay, we're calling it, right? It's nowhere in our world do we get to make that decision.
Right.
Right. And so the captain's already on the 1MC. And I need all hands, all sailors, all Marines up on the weather decks. I need every eye, because you never know who the ones are going to see.
Yeah.
Right. We've got the firefighting thermal imagers out there already. We're using binoculars because it's dusk. It's dusk.
Mm-hmm.
It was dinner time. Right. It's already coming up at nighttime. And the captain says, Master Chief, I need you to get the chief's mess and give me a watch bill to have sailors and Marines around the clock up here watching, looking for people on top of everybody else. And I was like, all right, sir, I hadn't passed the word, assemble all chief petty officers in the chief's mess. All chief petty officers and gunnery sergeants in the chief's mess, right? And I get down to the mess and I walk in the mess. And we're going through initiation at this time too, as a matter of fact. So I've got 3 chief selectees at the time. I walk in the mess to chaos, right? Okay. I've got 2 of my senior chiefs, just big dudes. I'm not tall. Right? I'm not tall. I come walking in. I see one senior chief reared back, another senior chief leaning in, people grabbing them, yanking them apart. The selectees are like, what the? Like, they're just like, what's going on? And I'm just like, this is no, not now. We need to stop, because these people had underlying tension before.
Yeah.
They already had underlying tension. They're senior chiefs, right? They have this underlying, even number chief thing that you can't, they have this thing, right? And I'm like, look, guys, now is not the time, right? We need to relax. We need to calm down. We need to be the peace that everyone needs from us. And I need a freaking watch bill. And you 2 knuckleheads are going to get it for me, because you guys are the ones that are going to figure out operational watches, supplementation watches, and then how we're going to figure all this out. And they went to work and they got it done. And we got up to the captain, and it was not, and the whole team came together and got it done. And looking back on that moment, it was just this emotional crescendo. But I'll tell you, the other thing is, as I walked around the ship that night, it looked like a zombie apocalypse. Everybody left all their food. I remember looking at the mess decks, just all this food everywhere, and just being like, just everyone left everything. Right. And they didn't go back. People stayed out there on watch all night, just hoping to find it. And so I say that because that was a moment that unified our mess, the embarked Marines, the senior NCOs, even more than everything, because that was a loss for the whole squadron, right? The whole group of us, all 3 ships, everybody, we all lost people that time. And it's a horrible thing. So I think that looking at that moment, I was managing always that latent conflict, like the challenge of them, because they would always, chief's mess meetings, argue, bicker, right? Bicker, argue, bicker. And then all you needed was a spark, and boom.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went up and told the captain, I said, sir, you're going to hear from me, right? I just pulled 2 senior chief petty officers apart from killing each other. And you're not going to hear from nowhere else. Because, you don't want there to be, FSAs probably saw it, right? The food service attendants. I said, selectees were in the room. We weren't doing an initiation event. We were mustered up to create this watch bill. And he said, Master Chief, I love those guys, and they cared enough to get after it. I'm sure you handled it. I said, hey, it was handled.
Yeah. Well, that is the prime the height of emotion, even without the incident during a deployment, is that 5-6 month mark, because you haven't crested over into that honeymoon. We're all going home safe. So, and that's
the scariest time for me, man. Like the end, it's like, oh my God, let's just get there, because it's I'm worried someone's gonna take their eye off the ball.
Yeah.
And then whatever. Okay. So coming back to you, we talked about, you have the potential for the conflict, you got the emergence, you got the escalation, if you had to defuse it, so after escalation, there's stalemate, right? They reach a point where they realize, right, neither one's going to get, they got to make a deal, right? Either they got to make a deal or somebody does something just ethically, morally wrong, right? Because that's the other way that it can end. Is you can cross that line where now it's like, you're just wrong, bro. You shouldn't have done that, right? You shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have done that. And now it's a whole new problem.
Yes.
Right. That we just didn't need, right? Because you couldn't control yourself, like you were talking about earlier. Where do you think as a leader is the best place to insert yourself? And I got my own opinion on this, but I'm interested to hear yours. Do you think it's after the conflict? Do you think it's during the conflict? Do you think it's after it's all said and done and doing a wrap up like, hey guys, okay, this whole thing happened. How do we, is there a space that you think is the best place for a leader to insert themselves?
Obviously it's not the ideal place because it's kind of like with an injury, the best time to take Motrin would be 30 minutes before an injury. Best time for leadership would be, right before that incident. But in hindsight, looking back at it, I would say the best time for a leader to kind of surface is immediately after that incident and kind of putting everybody back together, and kind of giving a direction. You don't necessarily have to like bark orders at people, but giving direction to everybody will diffuse the situation a lot.
Okay. Now what if the team, because my example was a senior enlisted group, so a bunch of people that are relatively good leaders.
Yeah.
Does your analysis change if it's a group of people that are not good leaders already? They're a little more green.
No, I don't think. I mean, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think initiating directly after that conflict and kind of helping to build out of that and get to a new normal is, what the leader's designed to do.
Yeah.
And with that, that's how we pull people together as a team, and you show your emotional vulnerabilities, through that. And as people start learning who the leader is and really understanding what you're motivated by, that's how they start pulling together.
Yeah. I think a couple of things for me out of what you just said is, number one, if the thing has already taken its course and they're on the downward spiral of it, hopefully there was somebody else there that helped to manage the conflict at the moment, right? Because that's awesome, right? That means you got a team player somewhere that's also to help watch your back. And then you're going to be a little higher of a level away from the problem, because like when I walked in that door, once you walk in on it, you're in it, right? You don't get to just turn around and walk away. And how I look at, and this is kind of my, I like to walk that line a little bit where I let the conflict simmer, right? Because I didn't want to be looked at as the person that was just shutting people down from having a perspective or an opinion because I didn't like the energy in the room, right? Because, some people are like that. They don't want to hear it. But then looking back at it all, after that moment, I found myself to be a little more concerned that these guys just weren't ever going to get to a place where they could fully trust each other, because they never did. I mean, I'll be honest, even though they came through that night, right? 2 months later, there was probably another scuttle between them about some crap or whatever. And it's just like, brother, why can't we just get on the same freaking page and not argue about who gets to pick the favorite color or whatever it is,
Well, there's different levels to trust. There's a huge difference between I can stand with my back to this person and trust that they're not going to punch me in the back of the head, or stab me in the back versus, I'll give this person, money to hold for me because I trust that they won't do anything. There's just those different levels. So you can spend, I've had people work for me before that just can't get along. I'm like, hey, in a professional setting, you don't have to be nice. You don't have to coddle people, but you can still be professional and get the job done without your personal feelings coming out there.
Yeah. I would say for me, another thing is one of my beliefs is don't tell me what was said about me,
Yeah.
right? Tell me why they felt comfortable saying it to you, because you would come to me telling me bad things about this other person, and this is what they would do. And I would just be like, look, man, at some point, I don't want to hear this crap anymore. You guys need to grow. I'm not the go-between. I'm not going to be the sounding board, because that's mentally exhausting for me. And I get to also be okay, right? As a leader, and leaders get to have boundaries. But the thing is, if you're going to come tell me all these things about this person, what are you saying about me when I'm not in the room?
Sure.
Right? Because I'll have those questions, and I would much rather get everybody in the mess and start throwing off grenades. Boom, let's go, bro. Let's have it out. Right?
Yeah.
And they knew it. They knew. If you ever heard them pass along, seeing assemble all chiefs in the Chiefs mess, I was about to throw some grenades off. I remember one time we were coming off of a captain's call. We were all on the flight deck, and I'm walking. The captain leaves. Everyone's dispersing. We're getting ready to go on Liberty in a foreign port, right? Like, it's a freaking Liberty port. This is an awesome day, right? I'm not going on Liberty, so I don't care. I stay on the ship all the freaking time. When they all leave, it's the best Liberty in the world, right? It's great. I can watch whatever I want to watch on TV in the mess.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want. So that's great. But I see these two first-class petty officers, and it's the president and vice president of FCPOA, and they're just looking shifty, right? So I make my way over to those guys. I've been there, right? Yeah. I was the vice president of the first class mess, so I've been there. So I made my way over, and I was like, "What's up, guys? You're looking a little upset for a Liberty port. Like, what are we doing?" "Oh, Master Chief, you didn't see it." I was like, "Didn't see what?" "Well, when they called attention on deck, the Chiefs didn't come to attention." And I said, Wow. I'm laughing about it now, right? Because mind you, you're on the flight deck. All the Marines are doing their captain's call down in the middle of the well area, right? Like, we are embarked. We're on a deployment. You got all the wardrobe on one side, the Chiefs mess on the other, the first class in the back, the crew in the middle. And I got the FCPOA president and vice president, who are both now chief petty officers, mind you. Yeah. And this day goes down in infamy. Is the first class petty officer rebellion of like 2018, right? But anyway, so I said, "Are you kidding with me?" They're like, "No, we saw it. We saw it. They didn't even come to attention. We think that's just crap." And I said, "Okay, I appreciate you guys giving me that. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you guys later." And I come walking up the ladder well. There's a smoke pit for khakis, right? Khaki smoke pit. This Lieutenant Commander LDO's up there smoking. He's the EMO. He's like, "Hey, Master Chief, what those first classes tell you?" I was like, "They was talking about the Chiefs didn't come to attention for the captain for all hands call." He's like, "What? I was right. I saw the Chiefs. They all came to attention." I was like, "Okay, thanks." I walked right down the P-way to the XO's cabin. XO's in his office doing his little thing. He's like, "What's up, MC?" I said, "Nothing. I'm going to pass the word, assemble all chief petty officers and first class petty officers on the mess decks. You good with that?" He was like, "Something going on?" I was like, "Oh, yeah." "Oh, yeah." He's like, "Okay, handle your business." Roger that. Popped up to the pilot house, had to pass the word, right? And so I get down to the mess, to the Chiefs mess, and all the Chiefs are like, they know what time it is. Like, they know if I pass the word for Chiefs and the first classes, they're like, "Oh, something's up. Something's up," right?
Right.
And I go in the mess. And I was like, "Look, I got the report from very two important first class petty officers that none of you guys came to attention before the captain all hands call. And I'm just curious to know why. Does anybody have any idea why this is a thing?" And my HMC, as a matter of fact, he was like, whoa, Matt, MC, bump that. No. Let's go get those guys, bring them in the Chiefs mess, and let's have the conversation. And I was like, "I'm open to that. You guys want to do that?" They were like, "Hell yeah, we want to do that." So you go out to the mess decks, and there's first classes already in civilian clothes.
Oh, man.
Right?
Yeah, they're ready to go.
Like, they were already in civilian clothes. None of the Chiefs were in civilian clothes. These dudes were already in civilian clothes. And And you could see those two that had told me what they said. They were looking very squirrely. They
Oh,
were
yeah.
looking, and I said, hey, everybody in the Chiefs mess. Brought them all in the mess. And a few of them came in and sat on down. I let it ride. Have a seat. You were invited in. Good for you, right? You're good. And I said, look, we're two of the most important organizations on this ship. Period. Point blank.
Mm-hmm.
The chief petty officers and the first class petty officers. I don't like chiefs making fun of first classes, talking bad about first classes. It's not my style. I was one, proud to have been one, right? So I will defend you guys always and forever. On the reverse, I don't need first class petty officers that are out here bad talking chiefs.
Mm-mm.
I don't need it. So just so you know, in the Chiefs mess, if I get a word that there's a problem, something like that within our organization, I will bring them all in here. And I said, you ask every one of them in here right now, I will straight up call it out and we will have it out so we can all get on the same page. And I said, am I lying? All the Chiefs are like, nope, he ain't lying.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm a chief. Like, we're going to have this conversation or I'm not going to do this anymore because otherwise I'm not going to be with my family if I can't be an authentic leader, right? Period.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
I said, so I'm not going to call anybody out because I don't need to. I said, but I heard through the mess decks that the chief petty officers did not come to attention at the captain's call. And one of those first classes like, they didn't. And my buddy, my top snipe, he's an Engine Master Chief. Because the guy was his guy. He was like, what the F are you talking about, bro? Yes, we did. Like, the whole group did. And we had out the conversation. We all get on the same page. It went down in infamy as the first class petty officer rebellion. We laughed about it for a long time afterwards. And I think those are if you can't do those kinds of things as a leader, your team, I feel bad for you, right? Because I see that a lot in the civilian sector. People are afraid to have the conversations that might cause there to be uncomfortableness in the workspace, but I really don't see a difference. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the best thing you did with that was, you said the uncomfortable thing in front of everybody to allow them to just go ahead and pick the scab.
Yeah.
Let's start, healing from this process. And that is something I've noticed a lot now in my job is that people let their feelings guide the way they do business.
Yeah.
And it is not healthy to hide from a situation because it's uncomfortable. It's actually to me, it's the exact opposite thing you should be doing. You should be having an uncomfortable conversation with somebody to just get past whatever animosity has been there. And when you don't, to me, that shows a lot of weakness.
Hey, I'll tell you something else. For leaders, that's job freaking security, man.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think to be an actual leader, you got to be able to have that tough conversation. If you can't do it, okay, you're a manager, bro. Like, if you're afraid to have a tough conversation, be a great manager.
Yeah.
But in my mind, your stock will drop a little bit because a leader will say what needs to be said and be open for you to change their perspective on it, right? Yep. And it's scary. Sure, check. It's scary. I get it. I feel it. I do. And that's why not everyone should come into that arena, right? Yep. Because not everyone's built to be a freaking gladiator, right? And if you're not willing to go into there and say what needs to be said, you're going to set them up for failure, man. Yeah. They need to hear it sometimes.
Well, I mean, you have two personalities that really kind of roll in that situation. You have your security guard versus your security monitor. Have you ever heard that before? Like, you've got the guard. That's the guy who's going to respond. And, he takes it personally as a responsibility to ensure the safety of whatever it is. And then you've got Mr. Security Monitor, Paul Blart, over here, who is like, hey, there's trouble over there. That guy.
The mall cop, rent-a-cop. Yeah, Paul Blart.
But I tell you, there's the fixers and there's the people that just point it out. And that's the people you always see with their flip phone, recording somebody while they're fighting. Those
Karen. Karen. Yeah. I'll tell you another good example for this. Once upon a time, I was on board an aircraft carrier, right? I was ship's company on an aircraft carrier. I was an even numbered chief at the time, so I'm a senior chief. And this is for forward deployed in Japan. And we had a very tough commanding officer. Like this guy was mean, bro. Like mean, like cover Navy times mean, right?
Yeah.
Like he made the cover mean.
Oh, nice.
And at the time, he essentially mustered all the khakis, all the chiefs and officers in the hangar bay. It's winter, it's freezing cold outside. He would muster us all in the hangar bay and essentially berate us in the hangar bay, right? Via a microphone, right? So sailors are walking in the morning to go to work, and there's all the chiefs. Huh?
They're seeing it all happen. Yeah.
That's why he's doing it, right? Like he's doing it to like act like he's whipping us all in shape. And I'll never forget. So I've been on this ship now at this point, probably about 5 months, 4 or 5 months. And this is, I think, the first time it happened. This story matters because it's like the first time it happens for me, right? And there was this master chief, big buff master chief. Dude is freaking, he's an AOCM, name's TJ, right? TJ, if you're out there, you see this, bro, much love. He was an AOCM. I mean, dude is a freaking bodybuilder, right? Like we slept in the same berthing, and like the dude was jacked, right? Like he's not afraid of anything this guy's saying. And I get that. I'm not either, but it's still weird to have a major 06 lighting us all up in the hangar bay. Like I'm cussing out a bunch of chiefs in the chiefs mess, right?
Yeah.
And so then they put us to attention. They say dismissed. XO says dismissed. And I'm hearing everybody just like all, I mean, I'm talking from 05 all the way down to chief petty officer, right? And they are just all over the place. And I'm just like, I don't know what to think, right? Like I'm not the guy that complains typically about leadership. I definitely don't complain about leadership in the hangar bay in front of officers, right? Like I might get down to the mess and say what I got to say, but I'm not going to, this is weird to me, right? Like I look at TJ and he looks so unbothered, right? I look at TJ and he just looks so unbothered. And I was like, TJ, what'd you think about what he said? He says, I didn't think nothing about it. He wasn't talking to me. It was the best answer I'd ever could have heard. I was just like, he's not talking. He's like, I do my job every day. So he's not talking to me. All these people that are complaining about right now, he's talking to them.
Yeah.
Man. What a paradigm shift. Holy freaking cow, bro. So from that point going forward, I'd get in front of my sailors and I would just say some generalization stuff and watch how they would react. The ones that were insecure about like what I was, and I would like, oh, okay. So you're worried about it. You're guilty. You're feeling guilty about that a little bit, you know? And I thought that was huge. And the other piece of that was his confidence in what his job performance was. He was unbothered. And I remember when I got an evaluation one time that I thought was going to kill my career, right? And I went to TJ and I was like, brother, man, what do you think? Can you look at this eval? And he was like, Gary, I mean, he gave me the best advice I could have ever got. He gave me, it was deliberate. It was direct. It wasn't sugarcoating nothing. And I picked that up from him because it was just what I needed to hear. Don't coddle me, bro. I'm a professional. Tell me the truth, right? And because I think this is the truth. He just validated that I'm on the right track. Check. Good to go. All right. So multiple kinds of styles when you're managing conflict, right? A couple that I'm going to highlight here. Competitive. People that are competitive, how do they try to get out of conflict?
That's always kind of a loaded question. People that are competitive, they're looking to compete constantly.
Okay.
It's in the name, but they're the ones that are easily motivated, you know, by small, shiny things.
Okay.
You know, when you have somebody that's very competitive, that conflict kind of comes, it comes, hits the head, and then there's a dominant, you know, winner loser, and then they move on to the next conflict.
Yeah. And they want the quick win, right?
Right.
They just want to be told that they win, right?
Yeah.
And the danger with those people, at least in my opinion, is they don't always think about different perspectives. values, right?
Right.
And one of
They
the things
don't
that I
care about other people's emotions or other people's involvement.
yeah. One of the things that I learned throughout my life is when people start wanting to rush a decision, I want to slow down,
Hmm.
right? Don't get me wrong, yeah, Doctor Strange in the Avengers, right?
Right.
One of my favorite leadership analogies is Doctor Strange in the Avengers because when they're on that planet fighting Thanos, this dude goes through the scenario like a bajillion times of getting killed to find
Hmm.
the one way to beat Thanos,
Right.
right? He's just relentless going through this scenario over and over and over and over. And that's how a lot of high level critical thinkers are, is they're going to think things through a million different ways. And so people think, oh, you just quickly had a decision. No, no, no. Those people typically have already thought it through a bunch of
Right.
different ways, and they just lined you up to walk through the door, and they're good job, right? But you were set up for that. But when I see competitive people who are riding off the victory and they want to take the lap, they want to cock a little, do a little bit, be Peter Pan.
Yep.
Everybody look at me, I'm the guy. I kind of want to slow them down on purpose because it's like, number one, and my wife always tells me, you're not that great, bro. Like, okay, I'll take that. Right. That's, hey, I appreciate, keep me humble. Right. But number two, it's protect you from yourself so that we can ensure that this win is good for you. Great. But also good for the whole team. Right. And not just because, like you were saying, there can be blowback. Right.
Yeah.
What about people that are like accommodating? Like that no matter what, they always want to just like, they want to always just relent.
Well, those are the people that you have to bring them aside and talk to them and give them a different perspective on, when that's good and when that's not, and how to find that line and draw that line. So if you've got somebody who's always giving up, is always second best, or is always, kind of keeping the peace, they're really important to have in times of conflict, but not all the time.
Okay.
You don't want somebody like that all the time because they're just the kind of person that's just going to get bowled over.
Like you were talking about with the competitive person, and now I'm talking about the person who's always giving up on it, right? For
Right.
me, I'm just thinking about the things I want to get to know more about when it comes to that person, because maybe it's a confidence issue, right?
Right.
Maybe it's this person is not as confident as they should be. Because what if they're the ones that know that thing that we need to know?
Yeah.
Right. And you're not giving it to us because either you're not that invested, or you're ashamed, or you're afraid you're going to be wrong.
Right.
Or
And you
the
don't
competitive person's like super loud. Right.
Yeah.
Like when I see that person be accommodating, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. What do you have to say? Like, get on the dot, say what you need to say, because you're on this team too, and you got to do it.
Right.
And I worry about that. And one thing I like about this is those people typically, they probably got a lot of potential, right? Because they don't want the glory. They don't want the cookie per se, right? And once you can convince them why it's okay to be the one that takes that win, as long as you share it with everyone else, you probably got a really good prospect for leader, right?
Right. Well, I mean, they're learning and they're seeing in the background. More than likely, they have either the right idea or the right way to that resolution. And like you said, they just lack that confidence. And there's a difference between building somebody up and giving them confidence, and then giving them false confidence, and you just go out there and
that's true. That's true.
So you gotta work with them. Really, just they really need like that coach. They don't need so much a mentor to tell them how to do it. They just need that coach to kind of help. Hey, your idea is good. You need to roll with that. So
I think the other thing is they need the right team of followers, right?
yeah.
Like you ever seen like a junior person get a leadership position and they weren't quite sure, but you give them the right group of followers, they'll come back victorious, right?
Oh yeah,
because they got people that gave them the chance to be successful. Another one of the things that I think that matters is people that avoid problems, right? They just completely try to stay out of it. I have a problem possibly trusting you then, because if you know something and you're not willing to say it because you're worried there's going to be more work involved, because that's one of my things, right? People almost, at the end of the day, nobody wants no problems. They want to go home, right? At the beginning of the day, there's all kinds of conflict,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because all kinds of reasons why we can't do something. But at the end of the day, it's cleanup time, it's end of school time, it's whatever it is. People do not want to have a conversation about conflict. They just want to avoid it and get the heck out of there. But the thing is, I still have to take care of it, right? I'm typically remember. I don't know if you ever learned this throughout your time, but what can you can delegate the authority, right?
Right.
I can delegate accountability. I cannot delegate the responsibility. So if I have a job to get done, you guys evidently don't think you have to help me, but I still got to get it done, right? And so I don't get out of that jail free card. One thing we do is we do a lot of drill in my current job, right? Like we take them out there, we put them in position of attention, and we teach them drill. And when I first got there, I was like, it's kind of dumb, like I never did drill my whole career in the service.
Yeah.
Like outside of like Chiefs Pride Day and basic training, we never did it. And so I get there and I'm just thinking, why do we do it? Well, now I can tell you after 3 years, we do it because it builds teams.
Right.
It's a team building exercise. And I'll watch people doing this whole drill and they'll think to themselves, I could call this better than the person calling it. I could be on better step. I could be on better cadence. I could do it. And so then when I'll say, hey, anybody else want to try doing it? I can do it. It's a whole new ball game when you've got to be that leader. Steps, right? And so I typically, when I see people that are avoiding conflict, they've got opinions.
Yeah, they do. But the problem is they don't speak up. They don't do the small things when they need to. And like you were saying, that really kind of dilutes my trust in them too, because to me, those are the people that are just going to kind of push things off to the side, and put newspaper over the urine in the corner and just walk away from it. And
we'll take care of it tomorrow. Take care of it tomorrow. I remember, when I was younger, we'd all get knocked off. We'd go back to the berthing to change clothes, and you'd hear the upper level petty officers talking about all the crap that they knew they didn't get done, but they were still going home, right? And when you get to that level where you can't delegate that responsibility, anyway, all right. So what about people compromising, right? I love people that compromise. I think that my favorite thing is when somebody's willing to give some ground. I'm not saying they avoid it. I'm not saying they're just always accommodating, but they're willing to say, hey, you know what they're saying isn't all the way wrong. Because firefighting, for example, I was a firefighter on a ship 16 years, right? I did ATG where I was inspecting firefighters with medical bubbles, right? We were linked, we were together, me and the IDCs doing inspections, right? And I would tell people, you get 4 damage controlmen, I'll give you 4 different ways to fight a fire. And every one of them will be right.
Yep.
Right? Because it's all about perspective. It's all about conditions. It's all about all these different dynamics. And so I'm more than happy to concede that your ways could work.
Right.
But then there's an and or, right? Or we could do it a different way, and we can add on to this. And I love those people so much because they enter into the conflict trying to not just diminish this person's perspective, but move it forward. And as a leader, we got to go freaking forward, man. Like I can't be stuck at this impasse all day.
No, those people are definitely the best tool to have in your tool bag because they're already invested in that change and resolving that change. And it's great to see somebody come in with that because it kind of, as a leader, makes your job a little bit easier. Now I've got somebody over here willing to do 50% of the work and try to resolve the situation with, whoever the emotional opposing leader is.
Yep.
And, it's great. And when you see people like that, you'll see that their it's not just kind of one-sided. They're not ready to mediate just one side. They're, like you were saying, they can see that there's a good and bad side to both, and are working to find that way around it.
Okay, so I'm gonna then ask you. So how do you teach somebody to do that?
You can't.
You can't.
No.
You don't think
That's
so?
like, so you can push someone to be emotionally involved in what they're doing.
Okay.
You can make somebody feel a certain way about their job by finding out what motivates them and what gets them there. But I feel like you can't, that's not a skill that you can teach so much as, hey, this is what you need to do and this is how you need to do it. If you're going to be able to teach it, it has to be one of the people that can already do it. And they're already like mentoring other people in that way. So it's not like I guess it's kind of like, what I'm trying to say is it's like a level you hit in your maturity.
Okay.
So once you hit that level in maturity, now you're able to utilize that tool. But very few people have that and are wanting to use it.
I accept that. I think, and we're going to talk some more about that for sure. Okay. The last thing is what's the difference between the compromising and collaborating?
Compromise is giving up something. Everybody has to give up something. Collaborating is really, it's using everybody's talents to leverage the best possible outcome.
Okay.
And
yeah. And that right there is the peak, right? That's the pinnacle.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's the freaking pinnacle. When you got 5 or 6 leaders that are all willing to say what they think is the best, and then what I love to do, and I do this to this day, I'll get 4 or 5 of my top leaders, and I'll walk in. I say, okay, here's the problem. Here's what you can't do. Here's what you can do. Anything outside of that, you got to come talk to me, but don't come talk to me till you're ready. And then I'll just walk out. I'll just leave, and they'll go to work. And and there's a magic to it, right? And they'll have and if you were to walk in there, you might think they're over there freaking bickering or arguing, but they're collaborating, baby. That's work.
And that's how you get their emotional buy-in. If you sit there and micromanage somebody and be like, I need you to do A, and the only way you can do A is by doing B, C, and D, they're not going to be emotionally involved. They're not going to care whether that job is 50% or 100%.
Well, and I'm going to tell you how I can get them to do this. And they've been with me now for 3 years in this organization, but I've gotten every one of my organizations to this point. They have to learn what I'm going to be willing to accept, right? They have to know, we can't even bring that to him. That's not going to work. So you give them up front. Don't even bring these ones. Here's the things you can do. Yeah. But then they also know, but I'm open to innovation. Like, if you could think of something outside the box, I'll probably say yes, because it could be the first time, but it works. It works. If it don't, it's don't. And there we go. Okay, so moving out of this phase, communicating is what this is all about, right? It's all about communications, sender, receiver, feedback, all that good stuff. What do you think matters more, active listening or passive listening?
Well, active listening is definitely the way to go. And really it's that active communication, active listening, where you're giving what I hear you say is that you really don't like doing whatever. Okay. At least that is letting somebody know. I think it's on the receiver to identify early, do you want me to fix the problem or help you fix the problem? Or do you want me to just be your sounding board, and I tell my wife all the time, like, if we have discussions, I'm like, are you looking for the answer, or are you looking to just get that off your chest? But with that active listening, you're responding back. You're letting them know that they're part of your, they're your center of attention. Like, I have people walk in my office all the time, and I immediately lock my computer, and I stop and I turn to them and I say, hey, hit me with what you got, and make sure that they know there's no outside, there's nothing outside that's going to stop me from listening to what they're trying to say. And you employ that active communication. And I have a terrible memory. So I have a book that I write, everybody's got their couple of
Yeah.
I go in there and I'm writing it down just so I can remember and I can refer back to. But I use that as a tool and really that's how you build relationships, is through active listening. If you're doing something, passively or half-heartedly, or you're thinking about 10 other things, you can't accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's my for me, it's one of my biggest challenges as a person, right? I've always got a million things going on, and people always, to them, it's the most important thing in the world.
Right.
And to me, I'm already doing 3 other things, and you're stopping me. And I used to tell my people on the ship, I'd be like, look, sometimes you got to like grab me and be like, senior, I need you to pay attention to me right now. I need you here. And I brought that up to my wife one time, and she was like, no, they shouldn't have to do that. Right. I mean, I don't need you to be exaggerated, but I have to train myself to stop what I'm doing, focus on you, and then not get disappointed if you're like taking my time for something that's not that important. Right.
Right. Well, I mean, you said it there. Like, when you see that that's the most important thing to them at the time, you've got to make that seem like that's the most important thing to you.
Yeah. But I will tell you, one of my relentlessly authentic things is to tell them, hey, jerk, it wasn't, that could have waited. Right.
Yeah.
That could have been an email, bro. That could have been.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
And I think I'll tell you so when I was a recruiter, long time, recruiting changed my life. I went recruiting as a 3rd-class petty officer in 2000 as a guy who was afraid to talk. I didn't talk to anybody. I was super quiet. I was super judgmental. I was a snipe out of the pit. And I was just, if I didn't like you, you read my face, right?
Right.
Recruiting taught me how to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And they gave me some lethal skills, right? Like, I learned how to listen for needs, right? So I learned how to listen for key words. And then when I heard those key words, I learned how to catch it, hear it, come back with a very quick closed probe to lock it in. Did I hear that correctly? Yes, I did. Okay, I know what you need. And then I'd move out on it, right? But the challenge is, as a leader, God, it's fun helping people fix problems.
Yeah, it is.
Right? It's hard when you're not in that space to always be the one to help them fix all their problems, because then all you're doing is empowering them to maybe not grow.
Right.
And so how do you manage that?
Well, it's really, for me, it was managing the mental anguish. When I get home at the end of the day, especially when I was doing things like teaching A school and stuff like that, I was like, man, my brain is fried. I'm emotionally drained. I've got that kind of physical tired that you only get from doing, talking all day long to all these people. And it was very daunting.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to deal with that stress and deal with that outlet. Of course, you're very outgoing. I'm very kind of reserved. So,
I've trained myself to be this way.
Yeah.
It exhausts me.
You got to.
As a DC man, as a firefighter, as a chipboard trainer, I had to teach myself to come out of that comfort zone.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I remember when I first did my very first ever Myers-Briggs, right? And the guy was like, you're a freaking conundrum. He's like, because you're an introvert that somehow has decided he's going to be an extrovert. And I was like, yeah, sheer grit and determination, dude. Like, if you're in that job field and you don't figure out a way to get people think, oh, you're so charismatic. No, I'm freaking stressed out. And so because I'm stressed out, I come across with this hypeness that it's really just my fight or flight, and I'm just containing it instead of just leading, right? Like,
right.
My wife always says, she's like, people have no idea how much you just want to go home.
Yeah.
Because, but I'll tell you, for me, when it comes to learning how to not always give people the answers, it's that I've learned how to grow leaders, right?
Yeah.
And I've learned that's my favorite thing in the world. My favorite thing in the world is not growing followers. I could care less. I don't need more freaking followers. I love seeing people become leaders, man.
Yes.
Like, that's my favorite. And I know to become a leader, you got to swing and miss sometimes, dude. So I could answer that and just give you the answer, but they'll come to ask us a question. I'm like, look, there's a book right over there.
Yep.
Have you opened the book?
Well, a lot of times, though, people don't know that they have the power to make that decision. Like, I'm sure you've had first class work for you before, and they come to you and be like, hey, Chief, is it all right if I let the sailors go? And hey, one, come here. Let's just have a talk. Look, here's the deal. Let them go. That's your power. Just understand that if we need somebody, you're the one on the hook. You're the one that's got to explain, hey, I told you can go home, but actually I need you to come back for whatever reason. Or you're going to find yourself doing the job yourself. And once they understand that they were empowered to do that, you know, that's when you start to see them change and kind of prosper in that area. A lot of people just don't know they're empowered because they're used to having leaders that do all the hard jobs for them. And you got to give them that tool.
And that's where you got to give them that. I think one other thing for me, so communication's got to be clear. You got to make sure they understand, like, this is what I'm saying. Is that what you're hearing?
Right.
But the other thing for me is another thing I learned during recruiting, and that is I'm not the most sympathetic person in the world, right? I'm just not. Like, the life I grew up was it was challenging, right? I came through a lot of stuff at a young age, and I'm not the one that's going to tell you all my problems, and nor do I really care to hear all your problems, right?
Right.
So I thought there was like a screw loose or something in my head. Like, I'm just like, why are they crying? And I'm thinking about laughing, right? Like, for me, I love firefighting. I love hard times. Like, if there's a casualty situation, I'm not the guy that's going to shrink back. I'm the guy that wants to get in there and get to work.
Sure.
And so, but when I got to recruiting, man, they taught me this word, empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed my whole freaking life, because I was like, hold on. I don't have to feel sorry for them, but I can understand. I can relate. I can appreciate how they feel. I don't gotta feel that way,
right?
But I'm sorry you feel that way. And oh, by the way, what if I could show you some ways to get out of that state of feeling? Would you want to have that conversation?
Yeah,
right? Let's join the Navy, and then away we go, right? Or whatever. And empathetic leadership is, in my mind, one of the most important skills you can ever develop. Because if your people are going to show you the emotion of whatever it is they're going through, it's just like the whole conflict thing, right? They're giving you a chance to get some trust, right?
Oh, yeah.
And don't waste that moment by just blowing by it, right? What do you do with people that want to continue to leverage your empathy, though? You ever seen that?
Well, you gotta help them find resolution. You gotta help them build those skills so they can find it themselves. You know, I can be an emotional sounding board for everybody that comes, across my path and is like, hey, do you have a minute to talk? And I can do one of two things at that time. I can say yes, or I can say no.
Yeah.
Say, no, we can't talk right now. They're less likely to ask me next time. If I say, yeah, we can talk right now, and we go through that, then that gives me the opportunity to earn their trust, and help them find that resolve with they're not going to bring me a problem. I'm going to fix it right on the spot. They're going to bring me a problem. I'm going to show them where I would fix it and what I think, and then give them the tools to help themselves. And in doing that, you're helping them to build that kind of that callus, that emotional callus of they've got a tool bag that they can go back to and pull from that versus just falling apart.
Yeah. I think, as we come into the closing part of this whole thing here, there's some of my rules of conflict management, right? And it comes from me. It comes from the place of you might get empathy once or twice, but if I start to recognize a pattern, right, where you're not learning, then you're going to start to get some other parts of me, and you're going to learn real quick. You thought I was being sympathetic. I wasn't. I was doing my best to meet you where you're at, to help you get through a moment, because I actually can put myself there and I can relate. But this is the third freaking time having this conversation. Here come the gloves off, right? And I'm going to punch you right in the bow. Why are you not learning from whatever this challenge is, right? Because at some point we've all got to be mature And oh, by the way, if we're doing something for a job, or we're doing something for our team, or if we're doing something because you wanted the freaking opportunity, quit coming to me with all this freaking wah, and start freaking getting after it. And so for me, I'm all about it until I start to worry that you're just using me, and then that trust vector sliding. So for me, one of my number one rules for leadership and for my team members when it comes to conflict in particular, and I tell this when people are get onboarded under my team, I tell this when they first meet with me, like I would sit down with like new chiefs, right? Because you go to a command and you sit down with the CMC as a new chief. One of the first things I would tell them is I'm a direct communicator. If that's going to make you uncomfortable, prepare yourself now, right? Because I expect the same in return. And if you can't give that to me, I'm not going to be happy, because I expect you to tell me what I need to know in a timely fashion and not draw it out. If you're afraid to say something, freaking say it, bro. Like, get through that. And because it's not personal, right? I'm not calling your mom or your dad. I'm not talking. How do you handle people as a leader who take everything freaking personally?
Those are sometimes the hardest people to lead, the hardest people to understand, where they're at. You have to remind them of their job and how, how that has nothing to do with the person they are, and help them build that character toolbox so that they can start, letting things go. Yet, you run that fine line of, like you were saying, people that bring you things over and over and over again. Once they stop bringing you problems, you really you've given up that leadership role. If you're, have that person that's always taking things personally, you have to teach them to build that emotional callus so that they, at the end of the day, they realize, look, they're not taking my birthday away. They're just telling me that I can't do this until I do that. It's not the end of the world. And you have to kind of help them get there. Those are the people that you have to really emotionally mentor and kind of get them to understand it. Because if they don't, those are the people that wash out really quickly.
I'll tell you, for me, and because there's is a multi-question thing. My least favorites are the ones that take everything personally and want all the credit, right? So that they're competitive, but they take everything personal. Poodles, right? They got to always be told how great they are. And I like I told you earlier, the CEO said, take it personal, take it personal. Yeah. I love people that own it, right? They own the problem, but they come from a place of humility, and they come from a place of like, I'm just doing my best, brother. Help me get there. But for those, what causes jealousy? People that want all the freaking attention, but don't want to put the freaking work in, bro. Yeah. Like, I can't handle that. And so for me, if you're a person who's taking it personally, and it's like, and always defensive. I didn't do it. It wasn't my guys. It wasn't my team. Okay. I got to watch you. Yeah. I don't trust you, because you're going to always be like, I'm rubber, you're glue, bounce off me, sticks to you, somebody else's fault. And that petty crap, I don't need it. Right. And I will mitigate you quick, fast, in a hurry by putting people in between me and you, because I don't need you to say, well, Gary said this or Gary said that. Brother, you're just, not everything is an attack on you. Oh, by the way, if something does feel personal, and I tell this to my people to this day, even with the kids in my classroom, if you feel like someone's being mean to you, come tell me, because I'm the guy. I will handle that, right? Because we're not doing that, right? I love rough and tumble. I love being authentic. I love people that are being direct. But at the end of the day, when you're the leader, go get the guy, because we're not going to be mean. That kind of toxicity will kill your organization.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? And then you got to figure it out. That goes on to my next thing is, I believe, especially we're all in the service, or we're like in my school, we're all getting a grade, or if we're all getting a paycheck, everyone needs to grow the hell up, right? You don't all got to be best freaking friends, but you're going to work together. And if you can't work together, why don't you start dropping papers now?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? If you're part of that team, it's because you want to be there. And I tell, I used this with my sailors back when I was still active duty. Use this now with my team at my clinic. I'm like, hey, look, from this day forward, we're all family. And if you have siblings, you'll be able to identify with, this is my brother and this is my sister. I'm going to punch my brother and my sister in the face all day long and tell them where they need to help, where they need to fix things. And I expect everybody else to call out and do the same. But at the end of the day, that's still my brother. I'm not going to let anybody else mess with him.
Yeah.
And that's how you pull together as a team. And more than a team, you start to become a family. And that's always been my underlining goal as a leader, is to just build that family, that environment where people, aren't looking at themselves. They're looking at everybody else as a whole to be better.
Well, and I'll tell you, like we were talking earlier about how to collaborate or how to be a person who's always compromising. The best way to learn that is by watching someone else do it, right? And to live that experience, right? To have someone else embody that, to have somebody else give you that example, and to have a mentor or a leader that's gonna their actions are matching their words,
right?
And they are doing what they're telling you to do, and they're acting it out, and then so you can learn from that experience, right? I think that's huge. You ever seen people that just don't try to understand? Like they don't even try to understand what's going on. They're just nope. I don't understand. Why is it so hard for those people to just forgive that they don't understand and just find a middle ground, right?
The people that I've generally worked with that are like that are the ones that get that entry level job, and then 30 years later they're retiring from that entry level job. It's really hard to motivate somebody who's unmotivated.
Yeah.
You can't push somebody, or complacent. You can't push somebody, if you've got I'm sure you've walked into a medical facility somewhere before, and like the tech sitting behind the desk who's been a tech for 30 years, it's like this old decrepit person who's always done the exact same job. And those people are great because we need people like that to just do the monotonous jobs. But they're really hard to motivate. They're really hard to draw into a team just because they don't want to do anything other than their job and go home after.
Yeah.
Those people are, they're really tough to motivate.
I would tell you my last thing, and this is just for anyone that's out there listening. It is your job to get along with everybody in your workplace as a professional. Yes. That's just, if you can't do that, go work somewhere else, right? I believe that to be true, right? Like if you cannot find a way to be okay, then go work somewhere else because you're not necessary, right? We don't need you. And what I used to tell this to people on the ship. I hate the Navy, man. I don't want to be here anymore. Like, good. You need to start breaking the rules right now. Like, don't wait.
Yeah.
I want you to start doing all the things you shouldn't do so I can hold you accountable, so I can take you to NJP, so I can take your money, so I can bust you down, and we'll get you out of the United States Navy. But you don't get out of the Navy just because you told me you don't like it here. I don't care. Get your freaking butt out there and earn your paycheck, or start doing stupid things today. Yeah. Do it. Go. I go. I said, but you know what's jacked up? By the time you get most of that done, and you're going to realize you actually like us because we're not that bad. We're actually pretty cool. But you're going to have screwed yourself out of an opportunity because you're too busy trying to figure out how you don't like something. And I say that even to the students to this day, like, look, man, those are the kind of people that I think you just got to let go, right? You can't save them all. And I believe that to be true. I have learned you got to cut some freaking people out once in a while. Let them go. So.
Right. There are people that are just emotionally leading a group, and when I say that, I mean, like, I've had people that I work with that are the people that just want to float through that job for the next 30 years, do that same thing, push that same button for 30 years and call it a day. But sometimes they become the emotional leader of a group without like, I don't want to be the leader. They're just the emotional leader, and their emotions counteract how everybody else in that job is going to feel or be, or
yeah.
You know,
You ever heard the analogy of rotten apples or rotten barrels?
Yeah.
So I think for those of you that are listening, if you don't know this, for those of you that are listening, if you don't know this analogy, you got this wooden barrel full of apples and water, right? And there's this concept that if an apple inside that barrel gets rotten, it could eventually spread the rot to all the other apples. So that's where the saying comes from: throw out the rotten apples, right? But here's the other thing you need to understand. If that wood that the barrel's made out of is rotten, then I don't care how many times you change the water, I don't care how many times you get new apples, it's going to keep getting rotten.
Mm-hmm.
So what you got to do is cut that wood out or get a new freaking barrel, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of people, and so I think if you got a rotten apple, one of the first questions I'm asking is, how did we get to this point, right? And then what are we doing about it? So, all right. Hey, man, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Gary, no problem. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. We're about to wrap this one up, but we're going to do this again in a couple of weeks. I look forward to it. I'll let you know what the next conversation is going to be about. And, hey, I appreciate you, bro.
All right. Thanks, Gary.
Yes, sir. I'll talk to you. Don't go anywhere. We'll talk to you in a minute offline.
Yeah.
All right.
And I know I was born for this. I know I was born for this. Don't care for the critics, my words are like physics, a force that they can't stop. They just don't get it, I think they forget I'm not done till I'm on top. I know I was born for this. I know I was born for this.